He took in an alien servant as collateral, never expecting she'd overthrow his entire galaxy. Smuggler took an alien servant as collateral, then realized she owned the stars. The reek of ion burn and cheap synth liquor clung to Doc 9 like a bad decision. Rian Cole planted his boots in the oil-slick floor of the bazaar and glared across the counter at the merchant trying to cheat him. The device between them, an obsidian sphere latticed with faint blue veins, hummed with caged power. "Grav lattice key," Ryan said, tapping it once. "He's unlocked, intact, and absolutely illegal. That's a six-figure haul, Jorvac. You're not lowballing me at 30,000. The gray, tusked Threxian fence spread his four hands in wounded innocence. 40,000, Captain Cole. Final. Market's flooded, risk is high, and you got a reputation for walking away from profitable side deals. Translation, Ryan drawled, beard shadow shifting as he scowled. I don't traffic in bodies, so you think I'm desperate. Jorvac's inner eyelids flickered. Desperate? Never. But perhaps we can rebalance. He slapped a meaty palm on a recessed panel. A side door hissed open, and cold air rolled out, carrying the sterile tang of shipboard recirc instead of dock filth. A figure stepped into the doorway. She was humanoid, but not remotely human. Skin a deep cerulean, faintly luminescent under the flickering neon. Hair like spun argent, braided tight on one side and cascading free on the other. Her eyes, pale gold irises with a vertical slit, found Ryan's and held. No fear, no pleading, just assessment. High-grade Serathi stock, Jorvac purred. Technomancer caste, collared, compliant, fully bonded, worth 80,000 on any inner-world auction. You get her plus 40,000 for your little forbidden toy. Very generous. Rian's jaw clenched. The thin metallic band around the woman's throat glowed a sickly red. I don't buy people, he said flatly. Then consider her debt paper, Jorvac countered smoothly. You take her, you file a release, whatever makes your human conscience happy. I clear a liability. You get your credits. Everybody wins. The woman tilted her head, still watching Ryan. There was something in her gaze, sharp, calculating, utterly at odds with the word stock. Your name? Ryan asked her, ignoring Jorvac. The merchant snorted. Slaves don't need names, Cole. She spoke before he could finish the insult. Lyra, she said. Her voice was low, musical, threaded with a strange resonance that made the air feel thicker. And I'm very ready to leave the station. Jorvac rolled his eyes. See? Cooperative. Rian looked from the grav lattice key to the collar, then back to Lyra's unwavering eyes. Every instinct told him to walk away. Every memory of other collars, other auctions, other times he'd been too slow, told him he'd hate himself if he did. Fine, he growled. You draft an emancipation contract. The moment the transfer clears, that collar comes off and she walks free. I want it on record. Human paperwork, Jorvac muttered, but his hands were already dancing over the console. You'll ruin me one day, Cole. You'll live, Ryan said, maybe with one less slave ledgers. Lyra's lips curved in the barest hint of a smile. I'll take those odds. Ryan had the distinct, unsettling sense that he had just stepped into a deal he didn't understand at all. The Wayfarer's Edge crouched in its berth like a predator forced to wear a docking clamp. Compact, dark, all edges and hidden guns, just the way Ryan liked her. Lyra fell silent as they approached, her gaze roaming over the gunship's armored hull, the adaptive plating, the custom-modified thruster arrays. This is yours? She asked. Ryan palmed the airlock panel. The hatch cycled open with a hiss of clean air and soft light. Mine, when she's not trying to kill me. Come on. Inside, the ship was utilitarian, but meticulously maintained. Conduits were labeled, panels closed, tools stowed, No dangling wires, no half-finished repairs. Lyra brushed her fingers against a bulkhead. The contact made the indicators flicker, as if the ship were listening. "You keep her tuned," she said, as most independents fly their boats into the ground. "She keeps me alive," Rian replied. "I respect the arrangement." He stripped off his jacket and worn chest plate, revealing a dark flight suit stretched over a frame sculpted by low-G workouts and too many bar fights. Lyra noticed. Her eyes flicked once over his shoulders, then away, polite but not blind. "Galleys down that way," he said. "Bunks forward, facilities." He pointed. "Use whatever you need. Once we undock, you're not my problem. You'll be a free citizen with a headache and bad taste in merchants." Lyra's hand rose to her collar. The band flickered, then cycled from red to a cool blue as the emancipation papers Yorvac had filed pinged the wider net. "You went through a lot of trouble for someone who doesn't buy people," she said quietly. "I went through a lot of trouble to make sure I wasn't one of the bastards who leaves them," Ryan said. "Big difference." She studied him for a heartbeat longer, then nodded, as if confirming a hypothesis only she could see. "In that case," Lyra said, "I'd like to remain your problem a little longer." Ryan blinked. "You don't owe me anything." "Debt is a human accounting term," she replied. "Serathi think in vectors. I was static. You are motion. I intend to see where that goes." Ryan snorted. "You always talk like a philosophy textbook?" "Only when I'm nervous," she said, and for the first time he saw a crack in the composed exterior. He sighed. "Fine. Stay for the jump. After that, we'll see if you still like the decor." He headed for the cockpit. "Strap in. If this bucket breaks free while I'm undocking, you'll want something between you and the bulkhead." Behind him, Lyra's voice floated down the corridor. "Your ship is older than the last war, but her power grid is overclocked by 16%. "Who tuned her?" Ryan paused. "I did." "Interesting," she murmured. "Humans aren't supposed to be good with Serathi architectures." "Humans aren't supposed to do a lot of things." "Why?" Rian called back. "We don't listen well." By the time the Wayfarer's Edge cleared the station's traffic tangle and punched into Slipstream, Lyra had already found the most fragile thing aboard, Rian's tiny, locked bookcase. "Careful with those," he warned, dropping into the pilot's chair as the stars stretched into blue-white streaks. "Paper doesn't grow on trees anymore." Lyra, perched on the jump seat with one knee tucked under her, held an actual hardback in deft blue fingers. "Leviathan Falls," she read. "Epic space opera. Biologically fragile. Historically important. Expensive." "Also mine," Ryan said. "And yeah, very expensive." She closed the book with reverent care. "You hoard stories in a universe that tries to strip everything down to data. That's unusual." "Most people just call it stupid." "Most people are unimaginative," Lyra replied. Slipstream wound around the hull like a living thing, the cockpit lights dimming as Ryan set the autopilot. He leaned back, studying his passenger. Her collar, now blue, pulsed faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. Or maybe that was just his imagination. "You're not what Yorvac said you were," he said. "No," she agreed easily. "But Yorvac rarely knows what he's selling. It's why he's still stuck on that rusting station." "What are you, then?" Lyra tilted her head. "You tell me. What did you see?" Rian frowned. "Not scared, not broken, not conditioned. You walked out like you'd been waiting for me to open the damn door." "Accurate. You knew the class of ship at a glance. You read human script like you grew up with it. And you didn't flinch when I mentioned emancipation contracts. Most slaves don't know the term exists." "So?" she prompted, golden eyes amused. "So you arranged that sale," Ryan concluded, "on purpose." Lyra's smile sharpened. "Very good, Captain Cole." "Why?" he demanded. "You could have hacked half the docking clamps on that station with whatever tricks you've got in your head. Why play commodity?" "Because I needed a specific vector," she said. "Not just any ship, not just any captain." She leaned forward. The recessed lights caught the faint circuit tracer lines along her neck, thin silver scars that pulsed with internal light. I watched you turn down 6 separate side deals over the past 3 months, Lyra went on. You broke a broker's nose for trying to sell a child. You dumped a slaver's cargo pod into hard vacuum rather than return it to its owner. Rian's eyes narrowed. You've been spying on me. Observing, she corrected. Serathi don't trust reputations. We trust patterns. Yours suggested that if you saw someone in a collar, you'd try to cut it. And you just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Coincidence is lazy storytelling, Captain, Lyra said. I bribed Yorvak's goons to arrest me on the outer rings, let them think they'd caught a stray technomancer. I suppressed my signature, made sure my value was just high enough to tempt him into using me as leverage with you. Rian stared at her. That's insane. That's planning, she said calmly, and it worked. You gambled your freedom on me being as predictable as your little pattern map. Not just your ethics. Lyra's gaze softened. Your file said you flew combat during the collapse, survived 3 fleet actions you shouldn't have. Humans call it luck. Serathi call it stubborn statistical defiance. I needed that. For what? Ryan asked. Where exactly are you vectoring me? Lyra's smile faded. For the first time, something like weight settled on her shoulders. Off the grid, she said quietly, and then home, if I'm not dead by then. The smell hit him first when he re-entered the cockpit. Real coffee. Not synth, not dock sludge. Real, ground, brewed coffee. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's chair, now wearing one of his spare dark gray jumpsuits cinched at the waist with a utility belt. On her, the practical fabric looked like some high-fashion uniform. Don't shoot, she said, lifting a steaming mug. I found your emergency stash. Rian blinked. That was hidden behind a false panel and 3 decoy containers. You hid it badly, she said cheerfully. Or I'm very good at finding things. He took the mug she offered, inhaled, and groaned. You're forgiven. She watched him sip with a small, pleased smile, then swiveled her chair to face the forward viewport. Slipstream currents rippled like luminous ribbons. Where are we headed? She asked. Outer edge of Serathi-controlled space, Rian said. From there, I figured I'd drop you at a neutral port and let you vanish. And if I told you that dropping me would get you killed? She asked mildly. He snorted. You don't strike me as the clingy type. I'm not. Lyra set her mug down, resting her elbows on her knees. But I didn't just run away, Ryan. I defected from my own board. Your board? She exhaled slowly. Full disclosure time, then. She tapped her collar. The blue light flickered, then died completely, leaving only naked metal. This is theater now. The actual tether burned the moment your ship left dock. Meaning? Meaning Yorvak. Never owned me, she said. No one did. Legally, materially, or otherwise. She straightened, some new posture settling into place. Regal, poised, unmistakably practiced. My full designation is Lyra Saren Voss, first heir of the Serathi Concord, acting chair of the Core Line Trade Axis. In your terms? She hesitated, then smirked faintly. I'm a princess, with voting rights over half the trade that moves through this quadrant. Ryan almost dropped his coffee. You let yourself get collared. Light collar, cosmetic. She flicked the metal. It rang dully. Good enough for slavers and idiots, not good enough to override my own systems. Because you're rich, Ryan said slowly, powerful, and currently very wanted. Because someone on the Concord Council decided the easiest way to secure my vote, she said, gold eyes hardening, was to erase me from the board. My own escort ships tried to kill me 2 weeks ago. I lured them into a gravity well and burned my ID on the net. She met his gaze, unflinching. I can't go to any port in range without flagging 100 bounty hunters and 3 assassination proxies, but an anonymous human gunship crewed by one stubborn idiot with a savior complex? Lyra smiled slightly. That can slip into places I can't. You used me. I chose you, she corrected, voice softer, Because you don't buy people. Because you keep paper books. Because you patch your ship like you care if you live to see the next sunrise. Ryan stared at the swirling slipstream outside, then back at her. I should dump you into the nearest life pod and send a very polite message to whoever's trying to kill you, he muttered. You won't, she said. Arrogant, aren't you? Confident in my pattern maps, she replied. You're angry because you didn't have all the data. Now you do. You can change vector. What vector do you want? Ryan asked tightly. Lyra leaned closer, her voice dropping. I want to find out who on my board signed my death warrant, she said. I want to walk back into that chamber with proof in my hands. I want to rewrite the Concord's charter so no one like Yorvok ever thinks a collar is good business again. She held his gaze. And I want you at my side when I do it. Not because I need a guard dog, because I need someone up there who still believes people are more than ledgers. You don't even know me, he said. Her eyes flicked to the bookcase behind him. You read stories about monsters and still chose not to become one, she said. I know enough. Before he could answer, the console chimed in warning. Slipstream turbulence spiked. Company, Ryan muttered, eyes darting over the readouts. Got a ship riding our wake, no transponder, no registry. Lyra's expression shifted from fierce to focused. Already? Friends of yours? He asked. If they were friends, Lyra said, fingers moving to the console, they wouldn't be hiding. Slipstream was supposed to be empty, a private highway through warped space-time, one ship per tunnel. The shadow on Ryan's sensors disagreed. They're sitting right on our interference band, he said. Riding the bleed. That's not easy. Not impossible either, Lyra murmured. Her fingers brushed the hollow controls, and new layers of data sprang up, frequencies, thermal traces, microfluctuations in the slipstream sheath. You know this trick? Ryan asked. I designed half the protocols to prevent it, she said, which means whoever's out there is either very good or very well funded. Or both, Ryan muttered. Options? We could keep running and hope their drive cooks before ours, Lyra said. Unlikely, or... She flicked a control. The slipstream field around the Wayfarer's edge shuddered. Or we drop early, she finished, somewhere no sane ship would exit. Ryan glanced at the nav plot and swore. That's a ghost system. A derelict relay chain and an abandoned black site station, Lyra corrected. One my people officially mothballed after the collapse. Unofficially? Unofficially? It would make an excellent staging ground for a hit on a conquered heir, she said sweetly. You have a very skewed definition of excellent. Do you have a better plan? Ryan's knuckles whitened on the controls. He could feel the shadow ship worrying at their slipstream like a shark testing a hull. He hated being hunted. Fine, he growled. Strap in, princess. This is going to hurt. Lyra's lips twitched. You do realize you just called me princess without choking on it? Don't push your luck, he said, and punched the emergency drop. Reality snapped. Slipstream ripped open around them, spitting the Wayfarer's edge into normal space like a seed out of a slingshot. Alarms screamed as the grav cage fought to catch up. Rian rode the chaos, hands a blur over the controls, instinct and years of combat flying doing what training sims never could. The ship bucked, rolled, dropped, then stabilized. They came out into darkness. Not empty, never empty, but a dim, cold patch of stars limned by the skeletal silhouette of a massive ring station. Half of it was dead, frozen mid-construction. The other half glowed with the faint telltales of stolen power. The shadow ship tore out of slipstream seconds later, not as gracefully. Its hull shimmered, then flared as his own grav cage screamed against the abrupt translation. Got you, Ryan muttered. Lyra's eyes flashed. They'll recover, and whoever's running that station will see us both. Let them look, Ryan said. We're not staying long. He flipped the ship over, engines roaring as he burned toward the far side of the ring, putting bulk between them and the newcomer. Routing auxiliary power to stealth nets, he said. We'll vanish on the far side and let them chase ghosts. We can make better ghosts, Lyra murmured. He glanced at her. Explain. She was already up, moving with uncanny balance, despite the ship's burn. Your ship is old, but your core is interesting, she said. Did you know Serathi cores respond to paired neural patterns? I told the mechanic to install whatever would keep us in one piece, Ryan said. Didn't ask about the magic tricks. Then it's time you learned. Lyra's pupils narrowed to slits, golden irises brightening. The faint tracers along her neck glowed brighter, pulsing in time with the ship's core. Where are you going? He asked. Engine room, she said. Try not to die before I make us invisible. Work fast, Your Highness. Lyra's answering grin over her shoulder was pure trouble. Try not to crash, Captain. The engine room was the heart of the Wayfarer's Edge, all humming conduits and a central core that pulsed with deep, living light. Rian had never seen anything quite like it. Apparently neither had the junkyard mechanic who sold it to him. Lyra stood in front of the core, bare hands resting lightly on the containment field, blue skin against shimmering white energy. You're not supposed to touch that, Ryan said from the doorway. It tends to explode things. Only if you're out of phase with it, Lyra murmured, which I am not. The tracers in her skin lit up like a circuit board. The engine's tone shifted, a low thrumming resonance that Ryan felt in his teeth. What are you doing? He demanded. Pairing. That's not an answer I like. She glanced back at him, eyes now glowing faintly with the same light as the core. Serathi cores can sync with a pilot. We call it a resonance bond. 2 minds, 1 system, faster reaction times, better control, deeper integration. 1 mind, Ryan repeated carefully, would be me. The other would be you. Yes. She laid her forehead against the humming field. I could do this myself. But the system recognizes you as primary. You've imprinted on it. That's rare for a human. Is rare good or bad? Depends how well we get along. Rian moved closer, despite every rational part of his brain telling him to back away from the glowing alien princess touching his engine. Tell me what you need, he said. Stand here. She pointed to a spot opposite her. Put your hand on the field. Focus on your ship, on every bolt, every patch, every improvised repair. She responds to attention. Ryan set his jaw and did as instructed. The field was warm, not burning, humming under his palm with a sensation that wasn't quite electricity. Lyra's voice softened. Now breathe. I am breathing. Like you're not about to dodge missiles, she said. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Think about the first time you flew her. The engine's hum wound through his bones, through old memories. The first test flights, the panic when an overtaxed thruster blew, the joy when they cleared atmosphere together for the first time and didn't fall apart. The field pulsed under his hand in time with his heartbeat. Good, Lyra whispered. Now, listen for me. He did. At first there was only the ship. Then, under that, a second rhythm, Lyra's. Different cadence, same stubborn beat. The field between them flared, and for a heartbeat Ryan felt something that wasn't his own thought brush against his mind. Hello, Captain, a voice like distant chimes said from everywhere and nowhere. He jerked, eyes snapping open. Lyra's expression mirrored his shock and something else. Delight. Did you just talk in my head? He demanded. Our minds briefly touched through the resonance channel, she said. That's good. Good is not the word I'd use. Would you prefer useful? She asked, because what we just did allows this. The engine pitch shifted again, and all the status lights across the room flicked to a muted blue. The sense of the ship changed. Less like a machine, more like a living thing drawing a breath and holding it. We are now fuzzy, Lyra said. Fuzzy. On sensors, she clarified. Our signature is diffused across 6 phantom echoes. To anyone chasing us, we look like a scattering of debris and one very obvious fake. They'll go for the obvious target. We'll be the shadow behind the shadow. From the cockpit, the proximity alarm warbled, then cut off as the phantom decoy spun up. "You can do all that just by thinking at my engine?" Ryan asked. "Not just me," Lyra said. "Us." Their hands were still on the field, fingers almost touching through the energy veil. The air between them hummed with more than reactor noise. "This bond works best when the two pilots trust each other," she said softly. "When they're aligned. It's why most Serathi pairs are intimate." Ryan swallowed. "Is that part of the pitch?" "It's a data point," she said, a hint of teasing back in her tone. "We can discuss implications later. Right now, we have a hunter to mislead." He forced his gaze back to the readouts. "You shape the ghosts," he said. "I'll fly the real thing." Lyra smiled, brilliant and fierce. "Vector accepted, Captain." The mercenary ship took the bait. They saw it on the holo, a jagged wedge of matte black metal peeling off from the cover of the station ring to chase the brightest phantom. "Got you," Rian murmured, as the mercenaries poured thrust into the wrong target. "Lyra, talk to me." "Primary vessel committed," she said, eyes half-lidded, one hand still resting on the core node by her station. "Secondaries holding on the far side of the ring. 3 ships total. Forward batteries? Online but cold. They want us alive," her lip curled, "for now." "Then let's disappoint them." Rian slid the Wayfarer's edge along the station's shadow, using debris and the chaotic energy wake of the phantom to mask their approach. The ring station loomed, a crown of rusted spires and flickering lights half embedded in raw rock. "You ever been here?" he asked. "This station used to house Concord research into slipstream shear," Lyra said. "We shut it down when one of the experiments tried to eat a moon." "Define eat." "Compressed to a marble," she said absently. "It was pretty, also catastrophic. Remind me never to annoy your scientists." He pivoted the gunship around a broken docking pylon, bringing their nose to bear on the second Merc ship parked brazenly near an external hangar. "Range?" he asked. "Too close for them to react in time," Lyra said, "if you hit first. Watch me." Ryan squeezed the trigger. The Wayfarer's edge spat twin lances of coherent light, punching through the mercenary ship's forward shielding before their systems even fully registered the threat. The enemy's hull blossomed in silent fire, venting atmosphere and scraps of burning metal. "Good hit," Lyra said. "Their core is going critical. Pull up." Ryan yanked the controls, rolling the edge out of the expanding debris wave. Shards of glowing hull slammed into the station's outer struts, sending ripples of stress through long-abandoned steel. "First blood," Ryan said. "How's our stalker?" "Still chasing the phantom," Lyra replied. "They'll realize they've been tricked in 3, 2... On the holo, the pursuing ship's weapons fired into empty space. The phantom winked out. "1," Lyra finished, "and now they're very angry." The surviving mercenary ships wheeled as one, engines flaring, swinging their noses toward the general vector of the Wayfarer's edge. "Status on their armaments?" Ryan asked. 2 spinal cannons, 4 missile racks per ship, point defense grid, messy. Lyra's fingers danced, but their targeting packages are sloppy. These are not Concord military builds. "Good," Ryan said. "I fought Concord guns, hate them." "They hate you back," she said dryly. "Brake hard starboard on my mark." The station filled the viewport, a maze of girders and shattered domes. "Mark." Ryan slammed the thrusters, throwing the gunship into a tight bank that scraped paint off the closest strut. The mercenary cannons fired, blazing through the space they'd just vacated. "They're trying to herd us into open space," Lyra said, voice low and calm despite the chaos. "Don't give them the sky. Stay in the junk. Humans are better at improvisation." "That," Ryan said, whipping the ship through a gap that no sane pilot would have tried, Might be the nicest thing any alien has ever said about my species. Don't get used to it, she replied. You're still statistically horrifying. A missile streaked past close enough that its shockwave rattled every bolt on the edge. Okay, Ryan said. I'm reconsidering the plan where we just run like hell. Lyra's eyes flashed. Or we escalate. Define escalate, ancient princess. We show them what a human flying a Serathi core at resonance can really do, she said. Can you hold this dance a little longer? Ryan grinned, feral and delighted despite the danger. Now you're speaking my language. The plan Lyra outlined in the engine room would have sounded suicidal to any sane captain. Luckily, Ryan had left sanity behind somewhere between his third near-death dogfight and his first smuggled refugee run. Let me get this straight, he said, bracing one hand on the bulkhead as the ship shuddered under another glancing hit. You want me to cut power to our shields, dump half our heat sinks, and let them tag us? Briefly, Lyra said. The tracers along her skin blazed as she poured more of herself into the core interface. They'll think they've crippled us, move in for boarding, they'll drop their big guns to avoid shredding my pretty hull. And then? And then we introduce them to a feedback surge designed by a woman who grew up watching Serathi boardroom politics, she said sweetly. Trust me, Captain. I know how to make overconfident men regret their choices. Did you just flirt while planning an ambush? Multitasking. Ryan laughed, breathless. You're going to get me killed. Statistically, she said, I'm going to get you promoted. The ship shook again. Warning runes flared red. Decision point, Lyra said quietly. Ryan exhaled once, long and steady, and flipped the shield breakers. Light around the hull died. The comforting hum of the defensive grid dropped away, leaving the Wayfarer's edge naked in the dark. Immediately, the mercenary fire intensified. Without shields, every near miss rattled the ship like a hammer blow. Easy, Lyra murmured. I've got the core. You dance. Ryan threaded the needle between two spinning chunks of station hull, keeping just enough evasive wiggle to make himself look wounded, not dead. Screens crackled with static as the surviving enemy ships closed in, sensing the kill. Here they come, he said. Range? Close enough, Lyra whispered. The moment the nearest mercenary ship lit its grapplers, she struck. Energy flared through the core like a detonation. Ryan felt it blast up his arm where his hand still rested on the engine field, a white-hot line of power that somehow didn't burn. The surge arced out through the edge's hull, riding the magnetic lock that had just clicked onto their plating. On the hollow, the mercenary ship's lights flickered once, twice, then went black. Its engines died mid-burn. Momentum carried it forward into a slow, helpless spin. What did you do? Ryan demanded. Shorted their spinal conduit with a resonance spike, Lyra said, breathing hard. Sweat beaded on her brow, glowing faintly in the engine's light. Think of it as sending a very aggressive patch. The second mercenary vessel cut its approach, firing thrusters to pull away. Other one, see? Ryan asked. Recovering faster, Lyra said, and they'll adapt. We can't use the same trick twice. Good, Ryan said grimly. I hate repeating myself. He slammed the throttle, swinging the edge into a tight roll that sent them skimming along the incapacitated ship's hull. At knife fight range, he lit every gun he had. The mercenaries' armor was thick. It wasn't thick enough. Their forward batteries punched through the enemy's lateral plating, slicing open atmosphere and structure. Fire bloomed, then flashed out into vacuum as pressure vented. The enemy ship's nose sagged, nose first, toward the station's gravity fuzz. Target disabled, Lyra gasped. 1 to go. The final mercenary ship, now very alone, made the choice Ryan would have made. It ran. They're spooling slipstream, he said. Lyra closed her eyes, fingers tightening on the core field. Not yet. They're not. The tracers along her arms flared, burning brighter than he'd seen them yet. The engine's tone rose to a piercing whine. then dropped into a bone-deep thrum as she reached past their own slipstream sheath. Ryan felt something stretch in his mind. A rubber band pulled across the void. Then it snapped back. The fleeing ship's slipstream wake collapsed. Their transition aborted halfway, leaving them vomiting raw energy into normal space. Their hull shimmered, then went dark as emergency protocols froze their core to prevent a meltdown. "Now," Lyra whispered. Ryan didn't need more detail. He brought the Wayfarer's edge around, weapons hot, and painted the enemy's engines until they were just molten scars on a dead hull. Silence settled slowly, broken only by the tick of cooling metal and the hiss of overworked life support. Ryan realized his hand was still on the core field. Lyra's was too. Their fingers, separated by a centimeter of humming energy, were shaking in perfect sync. "That," he said hoarsely, "was insane." "That," Lyra replied, voice equally rough, "was efficient." He met her gaze across the glow of the core. For a long moment, breath and engine hum were the only sounds. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She laughed, soft and exhausted. "I just hijacked 3 warship cores with my brain while riding shotgun in a human smuggler's antique death trap. I'm surprisingly good." "You burned yourself out," he said. Her glow had dimmed. The tracers pulsed slower. "I burned a lot of things," she murmured. "But I'm still here, Ryan. We're still here. And now we have prisoners." "Prisoners?" he echoed. She pointed towards the incapacitated ship drifting a few hundred clicks away. "That one will hold atmosphere for at least an hour, long enough to ask its captain a very important question." "Which is?" he asked. Lyra's smile turned cold. "Who signed their contract?" Air tasted wrong aboard the captured mercenary ship, too metallic, too clean, as if it had never been breathed by anything alive. Ryan's boots rang on the deck as he advanced down the corridor, rifle at his shoulder. Lyra walked at his side, unarmed by choice, her posture loose and utterly unafraid. "You sure going in person is a good idea?" Ryan asked under his breath. "Interrogations by remote are theatrical," Lyra said. "I want this man to feel how real this is. He's a hired gun. He doesn't care who you are. He cares about payments," she said, "and fear. I am very good at weaponizing both." Ryan wasn't convinced, but she'd hacked 3 warships with her mind and turned his engine into a ghost generator. He could at least watch her talk to one idiot with a ship. The mercenary captain waited in his own brig, wrists magnetically locked behind his back, ankles shackled, human, scarred, thick-necked, with the blandly dangerous look of someone who'd shot his way out of too many bad plans. "I'd offer you a seat," Ryan said, "but, well." "I'm fine standing," the captain said, voice gravelly. His gaze flicked over Ryan, then settled on Lyra. His pupils widened a fraction. "You're the package." Lyra stepped forward. The faint glow in her skin was back, subtle but unmistakable. "My name is Lyra Saren Voss," she said. "Repeat it, please." He snorted. "You think I'm gonna—" Energy crackled around her fingers, just enough to make the shackles hum in sympathy. The captain swallowed. "Lyra Saren Voss." "Good," she said. "Names matter. They're how contracts are written." Ryan watched her with a mixture of admiration and unease. This was Lyra without the collar, without the act. Every word carried weight. "You were paid to intercept my ship," she continued, "and to force a capture. Why?" "Money's money," he said. "Client wanted you alive. High bonus for not damaging the merchandise. I didn't ask for a biography." "But you signed a contract," Lyra pressed. "Digitally, which means you saw a name." "I saw a hash," he said. "Encrypted escrow, that's how this works." Lyra tilted her head. "Of course, you're not stupid. You know encryption is supposed to protect you." Ryan felt it when she shifted. The temperature in the room didn't change, but it felt colder. The air hummed with the same barely audible tone he'd hear in the engine room. "Do you know what the Serathi line controls?" she asked conversationally. The captain hesitated. "Conquered trade routes." "More than that," she said. "We don't just tax the lanes. We built the backbone they run on. The slipstream relays, the comm nets, the secured escrow chains. Every transaction you've made since you crawled out of your first gunship, it crossed my family's infrastructure." She took another step. The lights flickered. "I can't break your encrypted hash," Lyra went on. "That would violate more treaties than I care to list. But I can ask the escrow chain a question it can't refuse to answer." The captain's bravado bled away. "You can't—" "Escrow ID," Lyra said. "Authorized query. Serathi heir designation. Priority Alpha." The room's ceiling lights dimmed. A line of golden text scrolled across the far wall, projected from nowhere, hanging in the air. Ryan couldn't read the symbols, but Lyra could. Her jaw tightened. "Marek Vass," she murmured. The captain frowned. "Is that—" "My uncle," Lyra said. "Acting chair while I was presumed dead. Primary beneficiary if I stayed that way." She turned back to the prisoner, eyes no longer gold, but a molten, unreadable white. "You took a contract for my blood," she said softly, "to erase me from his ledger." "I didn't know," the captain said quickly. "I don't care who you are. It was a job." "And this is a verdict," Lyra said. Energy rippled out from her, a shock wave that made Ryan's hair lift. The shackles around the captain's wrists sparked once, then went dead as their power feeds fried. Lyra didn't move closer. She didn't need to. "Ryan," she said without looking away from the man, "you have a working brig?" "2," he said. "Good. Put him in the one farthest from our own core. I don't want his stupidity contaminating the resonance field." The captain spat at her feet, more out of reflex than sense. "You think you're untouchable because of a family name?" Lyra smiled, sharp and cold. "No," she said. "I know I'm not. That's why I picked a human who doesn't care about my name at all." She turned and walked out. Ryan followed, dragging the mercenary behind him like excess cargo. Back aboard the Wayfarer's Edge, with the prisoner secured and the mercenary ship set adrift on a slow, powerless tumble, Ryan cornered Lyra in the galley. "You okay?" he asked. She stood at the small counter, fingers wrapped around a mug she hadn't drunk from. Her shoulders were rigid. "I've suspected Marek for months," she said quietly. "Circumstantial anomalies, votes that lined up a little too perfectly, escorts that changed at the last second. But suspicion isn't proof." "And now you have proof," Ryan said. "Enough to walk into the board chamber and accuse him," she said. "Not enough to survive what comes after." Ryan leaned against the opposite counter, crossing his arms. "You're not going back alone." Her gaze flicked up. "You're in this deep already," she warned. "If you step onto Serathi Prime with me, every faction that wants me dead will put a second crosshair on your chest just out of spite." "Wouldn't be the first time someone shot at me," he said. "This isn't a bar brawl, Ryan." "No," he said. "It's bigger. And that's exactly why humans like me end up in the middle of it." She laughed, short and humorless. "Because you don't know when to quit." "Because we're really bad at watching people get erased for someone else's balance sheet," he said. "You picked me for my patterns, remember? Stop acting surprised they're still running." She studied him for a long moment, eyes searching his face. "I didn't intend to drag you this far," she said softly. He shrugged. "You miscalculated." "In my defense," she murmured, stepping closer, "humans are notoriously unpredictable variables." She was close enough now that he could see the fine pattern of luminescent freckles across her cheeks like a dusting of starlight, close enough that the hum of the ship faded behind the drum of his own heartbeat. "How unpredictable?" he asked, voice rougher than he liked. Lyra's gaze dropped briefly to his mouth, then met his eyes again. The glow in her pupils deepened. "Vector unknown," she whispered, "but the trajectory looks promising." He could have stepped back, made a joke, deflected. Instead, Ryan closed the last centimeter and kissed her. The resonance hit like a jump. Their previously tentative mental connection flared, the engine's hum surging in response. For a heartbeat, he felt not just her lips, soft and electric against his, but the echo of his own heartbeat from another vantage point. The ship chimed softly, systems aligning as if the edge itself had been waiting for this exact configuration. Lyra's hands fisted in the front of his jumpsuit. When she finally broke the kiss, she was breathing hard, eyes wide. "Well," she said, voice unsteady, "that improves the resonance coefficient." Ryan laughed, dizzy. "Is that technomancer for do that again?" "Yes," she said, and pulled him back down. The next week blurred into a new kind of normal. It shouldn't have. Nothing about sharing a ship with a Serathi heir while being hunted by conspirators should have felt routine. But humans adapt, Ryan had once been told, faster than almost any species. He was beginning to think that was just a polite way of saying, you'll normalize anything. Morning. Coffee. Hastily assembled from dwindling supplies. Lyra shoulder-checking him out of the pilot's chair so she could tweak slipstream entries for efficiency, which apparently meant more terrifying angles. Afternoon. Drills. He taught her how to shoot a human long rifle and clear a hallway. She taught him how to feel the edges of their resonance field without touching the core, how to push a little thought into the ship's bones and feel it echo back. Evening. Arguments. About risk, about ethics, about what came next. Those often ended with kissing, which Lyra claimed improved conciliation metrics. Night. Quietly breathing side by side in the cramped bunk, their minds threaded together just enough that he could tell when she had a nightmare. He would send a pulse of warmth through the link, clumsy and human. She would settle. They were, to everyone's horror, becoming a team. On the 8th day out from the ghost station, as the slipstream currents smoothed and Serathi space loomed ahead, Lyra sat cross-legged on the bunk with a hollow projection of the Concorde board chamber hovering between them. "You really want to walk into that room?" Ryan asked, studying the floating image. "Looks like a fancy execution pit." "It's more boring than it looks," Lyra said dryly. "Endless speeches, very expensive furniture, the occasional coup attempt." "You say that like it's normal." "On Serathi Prime it is." She flicked her fingers. The hollow zoomed in on a raised platform. "My father sits here, or used to. Since my death, Marek's been keeping the seat warm." "Do you think he'll try something in the open?" Ryan asked. "No," she said. "He'll try to drown me in procedure, rules, precedents, objections. That's how he wins on the board. He's not a fighter. He's a strategist." Ryan pointed to the tiered seating around the central dais. "And them?" "The houses," she said. "Trade families, old money, new tech. Half of them will hate you on sight." "Because I'm human." "Because you're not theirs," she corrected. "They're very territorial with their prodigies. They will try to recruit you." He snorted. "They tried that during the war. Didn't stick then either." "You didn't join a fleet house when you had the chance?" she asked, curious. "I watched both sides' glass planets enough," he said. "Didn't trust any banner after that. Figured I'd do more good picking my own fights." "And yet," she said, "here you are, signing up for mine." "Don't flatter yourself," he said lightly. "I'm mostly here for the coffee." "And the kissing," she added. "And the kissing," he agreed. Her smile faded a little as she dismissed the hollow. "Ryan, there's something else we need to talk about before we hit Prime." He sat back, suddenly wary. That phrase never leads to anything good. "In this case," she said, "it leads to biology." "That sounds worse." Lyra took a breath. The tracers along her neck pulsed once, then steadied. "Resonance bonds aren't just convenient," she said. "They're fundamental, at the deep field level. When two minds sync through a core like ours, it's not just data. It's patterns, feedback loops, self-reinforcing harmonics." "Plain language, Lyra." In plain language, she said, Serathi physiology responds to that kind of sustained bond. It expects continuity, permanence. Sometimes it reinforces the connection with a new pattern. He stared. Are you telling me our ship just tried to knock you up? You're unreasonably good at ruining poetry, she muttered. Lyra. She sighed, then looked him in the eyes. Yes, she said. My hormone markers are shifting. The med nanites confirm it. I am, by every Serathi metric that matters, at the threshold of pregnancy. Ryan's mouth went dry. You're sure? Yes. With mine? Unless you've been sneaking other humans aboard when I'm not looking, she said, one brow arching. Yes, Captain, yours. He sank back against the bulkhead, heartbeat suddenly roaring in his ears. 100 images flickered through his mind. Kids running through dusty refugee camps, hollow-eyed and hungry, bodies on burned stations, the future he'd never let himself picture in case it was taken away. If you want me to leave, he said slowly, say it now, before we get anywhere near your family circus. Lyra's eyes widened. Is that what you think I'd ask? You're carrying the heir to half a quadrant, more, he said. Human genes aren't exactly a selling point in that arena. She stared at him for a long, stunned heartbeat. Ryan Cole, she said finally, if you think I went to all this trouble, picked you out of a dozen possibles, rewrote half my people's rules in my head, and risked my life for this bond, just to throw you overboard now, then you are more statistically stupid than I thought. That's not an answer. My answer is this, she said sharply. This child, our child, is proof of what the Concord could be instead of what it is, of what humans in Serathi can build when we stop shooting and start listening. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm weaponizing it. He blinked. Weaponizing your pregnancy. Symbolically, she said, most of the time. And the rest of the time? He asked hoarsely. Lyra slid forward on the bunk until their knees touched. The rest of the time, she murmured, taking his hand and laying it gently over the faintly glowing curve of her abdomen. I'm thinking about how much trouble a half-human, half-Serathi with our combined stubbornness is going to be. He felt it then, a pulse, so faint he might have imagined it echoing through their mental link. A third rhythm, new, tiny, fierce. Ryan swallowed hard. Vector unknown, he whispered. Trajectory promising, Lyra replied, and kissed him again. Serathi Prime hung in the viewport like a cut jewel wrapped in a halo of orbital platforms and traffic lanes. It was beautiful, dangerous, and, according to Ryan's gut, hell. Last chance to turn around, he said. Lyra's hand tightened around his on the armrest. Too late. They've already seen us. The traffic grid lit up with new priority markers as the Wayfarer's Edge bled out of Slipstream. 3 sleek Serathi cruisers detached from the nearest. Defense ring, gliding into a loose intercept formation. Military grade, Rian muttered. Type 9 spines, layered shields, overcompensating paint job. Lyra's lips twitched. You're not wrong. Think they'll shoot on sight? Not with me broadcasting this. She touched the console. A pulse of golden light rippled out from their hull, coated tight. That's my hereditary ident. Even Marek can't fake it. The lead cruiser adjusted course, sliding ahead of them like a shark pacing a smaller predator. A hail pinged the comms. Here we go, Rian said. You want to talk, or should I? They'll listen to me, Lyra said. They'll hear you. The hollow on the forward screen shimmered into being, resolving into a Serathi woman in gleaming silver-blue armor. Her skin was a dusky teal, her hair shaved on one side, braided on the other in a pattern Ryan was starting to recognize. Her eyes widened when she saw Lyra. By the core, the woman whispered. Lyra? Narian, Lyra said, and for the first time since Rian had known her, he heard unfiltered affection in her voice. You've been promoted. You were dead, Narian shot back. You've vanished. The escort reported a misjump and a reactor collapse. The escort lied, Lyra said. I'm sure you've already guessed that. Narian's gaze flicked to Ryan. It was not immediately friendly. And this is? She asked. Ryan Cole, Lyra said. Captain of the Wayfarer's Edge, my rescuer, my partner, the father of my child. Ryan hadn't thought a Serathi could look that startled without physically recoiling. You're what? Narian managed. You heard me, Lyra said. And before you say anything regrettable, we are resonance bonded, deep field, confirmed by core metrics and med nanites. Separating us is medically inadvisable and politically suicidal. Narian stared, then pinched the bridge of her nose. It was such a painfully familiar human gesture that Ryan almost laughed. I've missed you, Narian muttered. No one else causes this much trouble on approach. I aim to maintain standards, Lyra said. We're requesting escort to the Concord board chamber, priority Alpha, and Narian. Our arrival will not be uncontested. I know, Narian said softly. You disappearing made a lot of people very happy. They won't enjoy this as much. Good, right? Lyra said. I intend to ruin their day. Narian's gaze returned to Rian, weighing him like a new piece on a board. You fly well for a human, she said grudgingly. Those wrecks you dragged in with you are making the cleanup crews swear in 3 languages. Rian shrugged. They shot first. Of course they did, Narian said. All right, Captain Cole, fall into formation. You so much as twitch the wrong way, and the entire defense net will try to vaporize you. Understood, Ryan said. I'll let the princess handle the twitching. Lyra elbowed him lightly as Narian cut the channel. Don't antagonize my security chief, Shiguai, she warned. She has authorization to shoot you. Does everyone in your life have authorization to shoot me? He asked. For now, she said. We'll fix that. The cruisers formed a diamond around the Wayfarer's Edge, guiding them towards the glittering lattice of the central orbital ring. As they approached, Ryan felt the resonance field around the ship brush against external nets. Scanners, target locks, a dozen invisible fingers prodding at their hull. Lyra's presence in his head steadied him, a warm, steady pressure. You still sure about this? She sent. No, he replied honestly. But I'm going anyway. She smiled, the expression ghosting through the link. Good, she sent. That's why I picked you. The Concord board chamber looked exactly like Lyra's hollow and nothing like it. Holograms hadn't captured the sheer scale. The room was a hollow sphere, its walls a lattice of living crystal studded with seats like thrones and workstations. Each house had a tiered dais lit in its colors. The central platform, circular, elevated, held a single chair. Lyra's father's chair. It was empty. Rian stood just behind Lyra's right shoulder, hands clasped behind his back to keep from reaching for a weapon he wasn't allowed to carry. A faint field prickled against his skin. Non-lethal, but firm, preventing him from stepping further into the circle. Lyra walked forward alone. The murmur in the room swelled. Hundreds of Serathi eyes followed her, some widening in shock, some narrowing in calculation, some unreadable. At the far end of the circle on a smaller raised platform, Marek Voss stood. He was older than Lyra by decades, his blue skin faded, his hair iron gray. His robe was cut in the old style, heavy with woven circuitry and status threads. For a moment, something like honest emotion crossed his face. Lyra, he said, child, we mourned you. You celebrated, she corrected, voice clear and carrying. The escrow chains say so. Soft gasps rippled around the sphere. Marek's fingers tightened on the edge of the platform. We received confirmation of your ship's destruction, he said. Your escort was on the payroll of a mercenary captain whose contract was signed using your chair key, she interrupted. I have the escrow query logs. I have the captain. I have the wreckage of his ship and the signatures of the weapons he used. She lifted her wrist. A hollow blossomed in midair, showing the mercenary vessel, the contract ID, the hashed signature traced back along golden lines to a node labeled in Serathi glyphs. Rian didn't need to read them. He recognized the pattern from Lyra's interrogation. "That node belongs to you, Uncle," Lyra finished. "Do you deny it?" Marek's jaw clenched. "You misunderstand." "I misunderstand many things," she said. "For instance, I misunderstand why my escort's flight logs were scrubbed and recompiled, why the debris field reported by your investigation contained no quantum residue consistent with my core, why you declared an heir dead without a body and moved to consolidate her shares within a solar day." The room was no longer murmuring, it was humming. Low. Dangerous. "You're making a serious accusation," Marek said, "against your own blood, against the chair pro tem, sloppy child. Grief makes even smart people reckless." "Grief didn't sign that contract," Lyra said. "Ambition did." She turned in place, making sure every house saw her face, the glow along her tracers, the steady, unshaken gaze. "You all know me," she said. "You've watched me sit in this chamber since I was old enough to form an argument. Have I ever spoken without data?" "No," someone called. It sounded like Narian. "Do I lie?" Lyra asked. A rumble of denial answered. "Then understand this," she said, and her voice changed, deepened, resonant, riding the chamber's own harmonics. "The man who tried to erase me signed his name in our own bedrock systems. He used our trust in this infrastructure against us." She pointed at the glowing contract trace. "If he can do that to me," she said, "he can do it to any of you." That landed. Ryan could see it in the subtle shifts. Postures tightening, glances traded. These were traitors, schemers, survivors. Betrayal in the plumbing terrified them more than any gun. Marek spread his hands. "If you believe the system compromised, all the more reason to proceed calmly. We can't risk rash—" "Calm is for after you disarm the bomb," Lyra snapped. She pivoted, pointing to Ryan. "This is Ryan Cole," she said. "Human, smuggler, former war pilot. He has no stake in our intrigues. He has no seat, no shares, no reason to side with anyone but the person who pulled him out of a wreck and didn't try to stab him later." Ryan almost smiled. "He also," Lyra continued, "bonded with a Serathi core designed to reject human neural patterns. He fought 3 ships armed with stolen Concord tech and won. He risked his life for mine when he still thought I was just a runaway technomancer. If you're looking for proof that humans are more than footnotes in your ledgers, there he is." 100 eyes turned his way. Ryan resisted the urge to fidget. "He looks small," someone muttered. "Keep thinking that," Lyra said. "It's why humans keep surprising you." A low chuckle swept the chamber, unwilling but real. "Lyra," Marek said, voice tightening, "whatever fool you've dragged in here and whatever dramatics you've staged, this is still my chamber to moderate. You cannot simply walk in and declare yourself chair again. There is process. There are votes. There are—" He cut off, staring at her arms. The tracers along Lyra's skin were glowing, brighter than Ryan had ever seen. Threads of white gold light twining with the usual blue. Her pupils were blown wide, her entire body humming with contained power. Behind her, Ryan felt the resonance field swell, a tide of energy pushing up through his bones. The Wayfarer's edge was docked miles away, but the link between them was live, humming down the station's conduits like a second circulatory system. "You're right," Lyra said quietly. "There are rules. One of them allows a Seren heir to assume emergency control of the conquered infrastructure if she can prove the core recognizes her above any other claimant." She took a breath, then opened her hands. Light erupted. It wasn't blinding, not quite. It was everywhere at once, a web of golden threads snapping into existence along the chamber walls, then shooting outward through the crystal lattice and into the station, into the ring, into the nets. Ryan staggered, catching himself on the invisible field that had been holding him back. For a heartbeat, he saw what Lyra saw: networks, lanes, nodes, the entire slipstream backbone mapped out like a living, glowing nervous system, and under it all, a steady, familiar pattern. His own. Their bond threaded through infrastructure she'd been born to and he'd just learned to touch. Routing override, Lyra said, her voice now layered with a deeper, harmonic tone. Conquered core, identify current primary key. The golden web pulsed. Patterns rippled. Glyphs formed in the air above her outstretched hands. Rian couldn't read Serathi script, but he knew Lyra's name when he heard it. The chamber heard it too, spoken in the core's synthesized voice. Lyra Sarenvas, heir, chair, bound key. Secondary claimants, Lyra said, list priority order. Marek's name appeared second. The room exploded, not literally, but in sound. Shouts, protests, demands. Lyra let it roll for exactly 3 beats, then raised her hands again. Silence, she said. The web blazed. The chamber obeyed. You all know what this means, she said. The core recognizes me as primary over Marek. That is not a title. It is a fact. Attempts to contest it will not just be political suicide. They will be mathematically incorrect. She lowered her hands, the web dimmed but did not vanish. Its afterimage hung behind her like a crown. I am not here to burn the Concord down, she said, pitching her voice lower, more intimate. I am here to repair it, with a human standing beside me to make sure we stop treating their people like spare parts. She touched her abdomen just enough for those watching closely to see. And with a future, she added, that is neither fully Serathi nor fully human, but something more. She looked straight at Marek. You signed a contract on my death, she said. I'm signing a different one. Ryan felt their bond flare, not full resonance, but enough to send a shiver down his spine. I'm binding the Concord to humanity, Lyra said, not as subjects, as partners. Our lanes, our infrastructure, our trade, all of it will open to humans on terms we'd reserve for a major house. They will have representation here. They will have a seat. She glanced back at Ryan. If he wants it. Every eye in the room turned again. Rian swallowed, loudly. Smooth, Cole, he thought. Then he straightened his shoulders. I'm a dock rat from a burned rim colony, he said into the charged silence. I fly a ship held together by stubbornness and old parts. Until a month ago, the only board I sat on was the one I stole to patch my floor. A few incredulous snorts. But I've also watched humans die cleaning up messes rich people left behind, he went on. I've spent years fighting wars your ledger started and pretending I wasn't fighting for anyone but the people bleeding next to me. He glanced at Lyra. Her gaze steadied him. So if you're really offering a seat, he said, I'll take it. Not because I want your power, because I'm very tired of watching decisions made up here kill people down there without anyone asking them what they think. He pointed at the holographic web still faintly glowing on the walls. You built this, he said. Stars, it's impressive. But humans know a thing or two about patching broken systems and making them run longer than they should. You want us at this table? Fine. Don't expect us to be polite about what we find. Silence again. Different now. Heavier. Slowly, Narian rose from her seat on one of the security tiers. As head of the wardens, she said, I move that we recognize Lyra Sarenvas as rightful chair, and that we provisionally accept Captain Ryan Cole as human representative to this chamber pending ratification by his own people. Voices rose in agreement and objection, but this time the tide flowed with Lyra, not against her. Data mattered. The core had spoken, and the Concord, for all its corruption, still worshipped the numbers. Marek looked smaller than he had at the beginning of the session. This isn't over, he said quietly. Lyra's smile was all teeth. It never is, she replied, but your contract is. Formal charges took hours to draft. Serathi justice was many things, quick wasn't one of them. By the time Marek had been escorted out under heavy guard, the chamber had adjourned and Lyra had been swarmed by advisors, househeads, and at least 3 cousins demanding to know everything at once. Rian slipped out as soon as the field guarding him relaxed. Political debriefs were not his arena. He found a quiet observation deck instead, one wall transparent to the curve of Serathi Prime below. He leaned his forehead against the glass, eyes closed, letting the hum of the station fill his ears. The resonance link between him and Lyra was quieter here, a faint background warmth instead of the roaring river it had been in the chamber. "Running away from your new job already?" Lyra's voice asked, amused. He opened his eyes. Her reflection hovered next to his, faint in the glass. "I thought you were busy letting them argue about protocol," he said. "They're very good at arguing without me," she replied. "And you were broadcasting overwhelmed human needs air so loudly through our bond that the wardens probably heard it too." "Didn't realize I was that loud." "You're not," she said. "To anyone but me." She moved to stand beside him, shoulder brushing his. Serathi Prime glowed below them, clouds veiling continents cut into precise glittering patterns of light. Trade lanes webbed the dark like veins. "It worked," Ryan said. "Your chair. Marek's in chains. I didn't get spaced. Call it a win." "It's a beginning," she said softly. "The part where they all start trying to rearrange my agenda into something more comfortable comes next." "Plans to let them?" "Not much," she said. "A little, enough to let them feel clever. It keeps them from panicking." He snorted. "You're terrifying." "You kissed me anyway," she pointed out. "Terrifying can be hot," he said. "Don't tell anyone I said that." She laughed, then sobered, laying a hand over her abdomen. "They know," she said, "about the child." "How'd that go?" Ryan asked carefully. "Better than expected," she said. "Worse than ideal? Half of them see a diplomatic incident, the other half see market expansion. A few see a person, it's a start." "And your father?" he asked. Her expression shifted, the glow behind her eyes dimming. "He's still in stasis," she said. "Med nanites are repairing the neurodegeneration, but it's slow. Marek suppressed the worst diagnostics, made it look like standard aging." "I'm sorry," Ryan said. "Don't be," she replied. "He's alive. He might wake up. That's more than I expected a month ago." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the planet turn. "You know this doesn't end with winning a vote," Ryan said. "Some of your enemies will fold. Some will adapt. Some will go underground and wait." "I know," she said. "That's why I need you on that seat." He grimaced. "I'm not a politician." "I don't want you to be," she said. "I want you to be a problem." He blinked. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." "You're very good at making powerful people uncomfortable," she said. "You ask rude questions. You notice who isn't in the room. The conquered has needed that for a very long time." "What about what I need?" he asked quietly. Lyra turned, leaning her back against the glass so she could face him. "What do you need, Ryan Cole?" she asked. He considered the question. The easy answers, credits, a faster drive, a bigger ship, died on his tongue. "I need to know," he said slowly, "that this doesn't turn me into the kind of person I've been fighting my whole life. That I can sit in that chamber and not forget what's happening on the docks. That I won't—" He broke off, frustrated. "Won't what?" she asked gently. "Won't become another name on a contract," he said. "Another variable some kid on a burned rock curses while they watch a convoy leave without them." Lyra reached up, cupped his face in her cool hand, and pulled his forehead down to touch hers. "You won't," she said, "because I won't let you, and because you won't let yourself. That's what our bond is for, checks and balances written into bone and light." "That's a lot to put on a relationship," he muttered. "We weaponized my pregnancy," she said dryly. "You think we're going to be delicate about anything?" He huffed out a laugh. Her thumb stroked his cheekbone. "Stay," she said it. "Here, on Prime, on the board, with me." He opened his mouth, ready with arguments about freedom and ships and the way planets made him itch. Then she added very softly, "And with our child." Ryan closed his eyes. "I don't know how to be a father," he said. "Neither do I know how to be a chair who isn't a puppet," she replied. "We'll learn, together. It's what humans do, yes?" "Botch it until it works," he said. "Exactly," she said. He exhaled slow. "All right," Ryan Cole said, former war pilot, current smuggler, reluctant politician, newly minted almost father. "I'll stay." "Good, Lyra said, and kissed him like a binding signature. 4 months later, the board chamber felt different. Part of that was the redesign. Ryan had insisted on adding a lower ring of seats wired directly to dock feeds and colony nets. He'd demanded live updates from the ground instead of sterile market projections. Lyra had backed him, to the dismay of houses that preferred their suffering abstract. Part of it was the fact that he now had a name plaque. Ryan Cole, Human Liaison. Someone had tried to add Prince Consort to it once. Lyra had quietly melted that plaque in the core. Most of the difference, though, came from the fact that Lyra no longer bothered to hide the faint bulge of her pregnancy under formal robes. The tracers along her skin glowed constantly now, their patterns slower, deeper. "You should be resting," Ryan muttered as they retreated to a smaller conference room after yet another heated session about expanding refugee corridors. "If one more househead tells me humanitarian relief isn't cost-effective," she said, sinking into a chair with a grunt, "I will rest in their accounts." Ryan snorted and poured her a glass of mineral solution. She wrinkled her nose but drank. "You're glowing," he said. "That's the med nanite screaming at my endocrine system," she said, "and the core being clingy. You can feel it?" "Always," she said. "Our bond is louder. The child amplifies it." She caught him staring at her abdomen and raised a brow. "Do you want to—" He hesitated. "Is it okay?" "Ryan," she said, exasperated and fond, "you helped make this little statistical anomaly you're allowed to say hello." He knelt in front of her, feeling ridiculous and terrified, and laid his hand gently over the curve of her belly. Warmth pulsed against his palm. Through the resonance link, he felt something, faint, curious, like a hand pressing back from the other side of glass. "Hey," he whispered, "it's your father, the idiot. Get used to disappointment." Lyra laughed, and the warmth under his hand flickered in response. "He knows you," she said. "That's more than I can say for myself," Ryan muttered. "You're doing well," she said, "on the board." "Today I called House Fenry's flagship a flying tax shelter," he said, in public. "And they backed down on their blockade proposal," she said, "because you embarrassed them in front of the lower seats." "That's not diplomacy," he said. "No," she agreed, "it's effectiveness. We can teach them napkin folding later." He smiled despite himself, then sobered. "You still haven't decided where you want to give birth," he said. Her expression narrowed. "The doctors are very insistent about their controlled facilities and carefully monitored fields." "And you're very insistent about," he gestured at her, "not being turned into a research project," she said. "If my child is born in one of their vats, he'll spend his entire life being measured instead of loved." Ryan shifted, then said carefully, "We could do it on the edge." Lyra's eyes widened. "On the ship?" "The med bay's small," he said, "but the equipment's good. The core already knows the kid, and we can regulate the field exactly how you like." "And it's ours," she murmured, "not theirs." "Exactly," he said. "Prime's nice and all, but my nightmare scenario is some house using the birth as a PR event." "They tried to schedule a live holo broadcast," she said dryly. "I canceled the feed." "Of course they did," he muttered. "So, ship birth." She considered it, head tilted, tracers pulsing in a slow, thoughtful rhythm. "The med nanites will complain," she said. "The doctors will panic. The board will write stern memos." "Sounds perfect," he said. Lyra's smile was slow and dangerous. "Set up the medbay," she said. "We're going home." The Wayfarer's edge felt bigger. It wasn't physically. If anything, the medbay refit had stolen space from a storage alcove and a rarely used maintenance crawl. But the ship hummed with a new kind of anticipation, its systems tuned as finely as a drawn bow. Ryan paced outside the medbay door, hands flexing uselessly. He'd fought boarding actions barefoot in half-pressurized corridors and felt less useless than this. Norian leaned against the bulkhead opposite, arms folded, expression carefully neutral. "Stop wearing a groove in my deck," she said. "You'll ruin the polish." "Go monitor something," he snapped. "Don't you have a coup to prevent?" "Thwarted the last attempt before breakfast," she said, relatively clean. "Carry on." He glared at her. She smirked. From behind the medbay door came a muffled curse in Serathi, a particularly inventive one involving entropy and tax reports. "Is that—" Ryan began. "Lyra," Narian said, "she's doing fine. Your med nanites are holding. The core's field is stable. And the automated systems are running the protocol she designed. You can read the oversights from here." "I don't want to read them," he said. "I want to—" "Be in there?" Narian asked. "Then go." The medtech said. "The medtech isn't your resonance partner," Narian said. "Lyra is. You think she doesn't feel you pacing out here like a caged animal?" He stared at the door, swallowed hard, and palmed it open. The medbay was small but bright, every surface alive with gentle light. The core's hum suffused the room, a low, steady vibration that made the air feel warm. Lyra lay on an adjustable couch tilted halfway upright, skin slick with sweat, tracers blazing. An array of holographic monitors floated around her, displaying metrics in Serathi, human, and raw data. A medtech hovered near her feet, trying very hard to look calm. "About time," Lyra snapped when she saw Ryan. "You're loud." "Sorry, I was busy being useless in the hallway," he said, moving to her side. "Come here," she said, grabbing his hand and squeezing hard enough to make his knuckles pop. "If I have to bring a hybrid heir into the world on a smuggler ship, the least you can do is pretend to be sturdy." "That's my specialty," he grunted. She hissed as another contraction rolled through her. The resonance spike hit him half a second later through their link, a wave of pain and pressure so intense he nearly doubled over. "Hey," he gasped, "that's new?" "Shared field," the medtech said breathlessly. "She warned you." "She did not," Ryan said through clenched teeth. Lyra laughed weakly. "You wanted to be involved." "I take it back," he muttered. "No refunds," she said, and push with me. "What?" "The field," she panted. "Don't fight it, ride it. The core's buffering us, but it's stronger if we align." Ryan swallowed, closed his eyes, and dropped fully into the bond. Pain hit him like a tidal wave, but under it he felt Lyra's strength braided with the ship's and something else, small, bright, stubborn. He focused on that. The universe narrowed to 3 rhythms. Lyra's pounding heart, the core's steady the quick, flickering pulse of their child. "Again!" the medtech called. "Now!" They pushed. Afterward, Ryan would remember flashes, Lyra cursing him in 3 languages, his own voice shouting nonsense encouragement. Narian at the door, eyes suspiciously bright. The core flaring once, twice, as if the ship itself were holding its breath. Then suddenly there was another sound, thin, indignant, loud. The medtech laughed. "We have a good set of lungs." Ryan opened his eyes. In the medtech's gloved hands lay a tiny, squalling creature wrapped in a thermal sheet, skin a pale, luminous blue, hair a dark fuzz, eyes squeezed shut. Tracers, faint, silver lines already visible along tiny arms. Ryan's knees almost gave out. "Do you want to cut the tether?" the medtech asked, offering a sterile instrument. Ryan stared at the glowing cord linking the baby to Lyra, then at Lyra herself, sweaty and radiant and utterly exhausted. You sure I won't screw it up? He asked. Lyra smiled, slow and soft. You already did. Perfectly. Finish the job. Hands shaking, Ryan took the tool and cut. The cord severed with a flash of light. The baby's wail spiked, then settled into angry hiccups. Healthy, the medtech said, running a scanner over the child. Stronger field than expected. Hybrid markers. Stable. Let me see him, Lyra said. Ryan took their son, from the medtech, cradling him like he'd seen 100 soldiers cradle injured comrades. The baby was heavier than he expected, warmer, vibrating with energy. When he placed the bundle in Lyra's arms, the resonance field surged. For a heartbeat, their link snapped wide open. He saw himself through Lyra's eyes, a scruffy, terrified human with tears on his face and awe in his expression. He saw Lyra through his own, fierce, luminous, cradling, impossible new life. And in between, like a new chord in an old song, he felt the baby's presence, unfocused, bright, curious. Hey, Lyra whispered, brushing a finger over a tiny clenched fist. Welcome to the worst-run quadrant in the galaxy, little one. The baby quieted, blinking open eyes that were neither human brown nor Serathi gold, but something in between. A hazel shot through with faint metallic flecks. Ryan started, then stopped, words failing. Perfect, Lyra finished. Narian cleared her throat from the doorway. The board is already pinging for updates. They want to know. Tell them he's loud, healthy, and not interested in their market forecasts, Lyra said without looking up. And his name? Narian asked. Rian and Lyra exchanged a glance. We didn't, he began. We did, she said. You just thought I wasn't listening. She looked at the baby. This is Kale, she said, from the old human word for sky, and the Serathi root for pattern. Kale Saren Cole, Ryan said, testing it. The name settled around the baby like a cloak. The core hummed, as if in approval. Narian smiled, unexpectedly tender. Welcome to the Concord, Kale, she said. Try not to break it too badly. Kale grew fast. Not physically. He was as squishy and helpless as any newborn despite the faint tracer glow along his skin. But his field grew at a pace that made every medtech on Prime swear and adjust their instruments. It's like he's got a core in his chest, one of them muttered. That's normal, Lyra said, for him. The Wayfarer's Edge became less a smuggler's gunship and more a nursery with engines. Soft blankets appeared in corners that had once held ammo crates. A mobile of tiny ships spun lazily over a crib welded to the deck. Rian discovered parts of himself he hadn't known existed. Patience, for one. The ability to function on 4 hours of sleep for another. The talent for telling stories about space whales that may or may not exist for a third. At the same time, politics didn't pause for diapers. The Concord's enemies were not deterred by one failed coup and a hybrid baby. They adapted. They probed new weaknesses. They whispered in house halls and border stations, which was why, 6 months after Kale's birth, Ryan found himself back in the cockpit, watching a cluster of hostile signatures bloom on the edge of his sensor range. Remind me why we brought the baby on this one, he muttered. Because leaving him on Prime means he'd become the board's favorite toy, Lyra said from behind him. Kale rapped against her chest in a cleverly engineered harness. At least out here, we know who's pointing guns at us. You realize most people don't take infants on anti-pirate patrol, he said. Most infants aren't walking resonance amplifiers, she replied. He stabilizes the core when we push it. I am going to develop ulcers, Rian muttered. According to your med readouts, you already have, she said lightly. We'll burn them out with adrenaline. The hostile ships, 4 this time, tightened formation. Their hull patterns were familiar. Modified Concord frames painted over, the tech inside corrupted. Bleedborn again, Ryan said. They're like roaches. Their funding got cut when Marek went down, Lyra said. That they're desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. They're targeting refugee lanes, he said, again. Yes, she said quietly, again. Ryan's jaw set. Open a channel, he said. Lyra did. This is Captain Rian Cole of the Wayfarer's Edge, he said, letting every ounce of former smuggler menace bleed into his tone. You're trespassing on a protected corridor. Power down and transmit surrender vectors, or I will cut your drives out from under you and tow your wrecks back to Prime as teaching aids. Static. Then a sneering voice. Big talk, human, it said. You and your Serathi mistress really think you can police the lanes by yourselves? Ryan smiled without humor. Not by ourselves, he said. By example. He cut the channel. Lyra? Field is stable, she said. The tracers along her arms and Kale's skin glowed in synchrony. Kale's steady. He likes the hum. That's my boy, Ryan murmured. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat reaching through the bond. Lyra's presence met him warm and strong. Under it, Kale's bright, unfocused curiosity. Around them, the ship's core thrumming like a heart amplified. All right, Rian said. Let's show them what happens when you try to turn people into leverage. He pushed the Wayfarer's Edge forward. This time, it wasn't improvisation. It was choreography. Lyra shaped the resonance field, scattering their signature into a dozen ghosts. Kale, blissfully unaware, added raw amplification that made the ghosts brighter, the echoes sharper. Ryan rode the currents, cutting vectors that no non-bonded pilot could have calculated fast enough. They hit the first pirate ship from below, flipping inverted at the last second to shear off its sensor array with a precisely placed burst. Before their target could recover, they'd rolled and burned for the next. It wasn't a battle so much as a schooling. The pirates were good, but they were fighting old patterns. Ryan and Lyra were building new ones as they went. It still wasn't easy. One pirate ship got a lucky shot in, clipping the Edge's port side and sending them into a violent roll. Kale cried out, the resonance field spiking wildly. Easy, Lyra soothed, both aloud and through the bond. We've got you. Ryan rode the spin, teeth gritted, trusting her to keep the core from overloading. They leveled out just in time to watch Narian's cruiser drop out of slipstream above them, guns blazing. You started the party without me. Narian's voice crackled over the comms. We left the big, slow ones for you, Ryan shot back. Together they broke the pirates, not just with superior firepower, but with information. Every maneuver, every hack, every scramble Lyra pulled was recorded, compressed, and beamed to nearby stations, broadcast as a message. This is what happens when you target protected lanes now. The rules have changed. When the last pirate ship powered down and broadcast surrender, Rian sagged back in his chair, exhausted. Lyra touched his shoulder, Kale cooing sleepily against her. You okay? She asked. Ask me in a year, he said. She leaned down and kissed his temple. You did well. So did you, he said. So did he. Kale waved a tiny fist in the air, tracers flickering. HFY, Ryan murmured. HFY? Lyra asked. Humanity. Fuck yeah, he said. It's a slogan for when we do something impossible and somehow don't die. Lyra considered this. I like it, she said, but we should expand it. To what? He asked. Humanity and Serathi? Finally, she said HSF. That's terrible branding, he said. We'll workshop it. Years later, Ryan would look back on that first pirate patrol as the moment the Concorde really changed. Not the board vote, not Marek's arrest, not even Kale's birth. Those were catalysts, important, yes, but the galaxy only believes in change it can touch. Lanes cleared faster. Refugee convoys stopped vanishing. Human habitats that had once been invisible blips on the Concorde's maps became hubs, then partners, then houses in their own right. On Prime, the lower ring in the board chamber expanded, adding seats and feeds representing worlds that had never had voices before. Ryan spent more time there than he liked. Braced between Lyra's ruthless pragmatism and the messy needs of the people below. He still flew whenever he could. So did Lyra. So eventually did Kale. strapped into a modified jump seat with a grin that was half Ryan's, half Lyra's, and entirely his own. On one quiet run between inspection tours, as the Wayfarer's Edge cruised through an unremarkable patch of stars, Ryan found himself in the galley, staring at the old bookcase. It was fuller now. Some of the spines were Serathi texts, printed on synth pulp. One shelf held data slates with personal logs, Kale's early doodles, trade route diagrams. Lyra slipped in behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Getting sentimental in your old age?" she asked. "I'm not old," he said. "I'm seasoned." "You're getting silver in your beard," she said, brushing a thumb across his jaw. "I like it." "You're biased," he said. "Obviously," she replied. He pulled a worn book off the shelf and flipped it open. A page fell out, an old contract. The ink faint but legible. Grav lattice key, Doc 9, Yorvak's scrawled authorization, the emancipation clause he'd insisted on. Legalese messy but firm. He held it up. "Remember this?" he asked. Lyra took the sheet, eyes crinkling in amusement. "The stupidest deal you ever made," she said, "and the best." "You lied to me," he said. "I gave you incomplete data," she corrected, "and very compelling collateral." He laughed. "You ever think about what would have happened if I'd walked away?" he asked. "If I'd decided a grav key wasn't worth the trouble?" Lyra folded the contract carefully and tucked it back into the book. "Then I'd be dead," she said simply, "or worse, compliant. The Conquered would still be rotting from the inside. Human ships would still be flying through our lanes as prey instead of partners. And you?" She considered him. "You'd probably still be out there," she said, "flying, fighting, saving who you could. You don't know how to do anything else." "That's bleak," he said. "That's honest," she replied. "But instead, you took a bad deal on purpose, 'cause you couldn't walk past someone in a collar." She tapped his chest. "That's the pattern that matters," she said. "Not the titles, not the seats, not the treaties. You. Deciding to be the person who says no." Ryan swallowed. "You give me too much credit." "I gave you access," she said. "You took the rest." He turned, catching her hand. "What about you?" he asked. "You let yourself be collared. You jumped into the dark with nothing but a pattern map and a hunch. You trusted a species everyone in your childhood told you was dangerous and irrational." "And I was right," she said. "Dangerous, irrational humans are very useful." He kissed her knuckles. "We did okay," he said. "We did more than okay," she replied. "We changed the vector of an entire quadrant. That's very rude, statistically speaking." He grinned. "HFY." She rolled her eyes affectionately. HFY. Kale chose that moment to barrel into the galley, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste. "Mom, Dad," he said breathlessly. "Narian says there's a new pirate group forming in the rim belts, and she wants to know if we can go scare them so bad they pee in their suits." Lyra pinched the bridge of her nose. "Narian is not allowed to babysit anymore." "Yes, she is," Ryan said. "Forever." Kale bounced on his toes, tracers flickering. "Can I come?" he asked. "Please? I've been practicing my projections. I can make 3 ghost ships now without even trying." "You can come," Lyra said, "as long as you listen to the safety protocols and don't hotwire the core without telling us first." Kale groaned. "Moom!" "Non-negotiable," she said. Ryan slung an arm around his son's shoulders. "Come on, kid," he said. "Let's go teach some idiots what happens when they confuse people with merchandise." Kale's eyes lit up. "HFY?" "TFY," Ryan and Lyra said together. The Wayfarer's Edge hummed in agreement as they headed for the cockpit. Family and ship and Conquered all threaded together by choices that had started in a dingy dock bazaar years ago. Ryan took his seat, hands settling on controls that felt as natural now as his own bones. Lyra slipped into the co-pilot's chair, fingers brushing the resonance field. Kale climbed into his jump seat, eyes bright, mind already reaching for the patterns in the void. "Ready?" Ryan asked. "Always," Lyra said. "Vector?" Kale chirped. Ryan smiled, watching the stars stretch ahead. "Forward," he said. "We keep going forward." The ship leapt, engines singing, family bound by light and stubbornness, and a very stupid, very good deal. Best payment he'd ever accepted. The end subscribe for more gripping HFY romances where humanity keeps breaking the universe in the best possible ways.